Good morning. How are you today? It's going to be a scorcher here. Sun is out, but there is a nice wind. And there's nothing like a good walk on a dirt road to put everything in perspective. I've been thinking about the attacks on Biden, the talk that he should be impeached for what he's doing. And as a kid, from time to time, you get in a fist fight. And these were, I don't know, not terribly hurtful events, but if someone thought you were getting the better of the opponent, even though they weren't in the fight, they'd grab your arm or something. And I have a similar feeling about Biden is struggling, adjusting to changing circumstances, to frustrating events, in order to get American citizens and those who were allied with us during the occupation out of Afghanistan. And that's a pretty demanding undertaking. And then there are people sort of grabbing at his arm to prevent him from being 100% effective. I've quoted before a phrase that Jack Kennedy said during the the Cuban Missile Crisis. And I only know about it because Robert Kennedy wrote down what JFK said and put it in a frame over his bed. And I found that out from Ethel after he died, when I was at their house for a fundraiser for my congressional campaign. And what Jack Kennedy said is, bullfight critics row by row crowd the enormous plaza full. But there is only one who knows, and that's the man who fights the bull. And with an old friend of Bobby Kennedy's, we searched the Kennedy Library to confirm that that was his quote. Well, I think that applies to Biden right now. He's fighting the fight. He's a commander-in-chief. He had headed up the Foreign Relations Committee. So unlike some of our presidents, he's steeped in a background to understand the international value of staying there longer or leaving. And he also knows that this event changes by the hour. If I could oversimplify it, it seems to me what we have is an American force which has basically been given the run of the airport. And the Taliban would like them to limit themselves as much as possible to that. And then we have the people traveling from Kabul to the airport about 4 miles away. But the imponderable is a force of Afghanistan natives who live there, who want out, who did not help us during the occupation and are not subject to our help to leave. And there are very many people there. The Taliban itself seems to be stretched pretty thin. So I'm trying to compare it to how we felt over Vietnam. By the time I was thinking about it, people had come back from Vietnam, and we learned about the lies that were being told in connection with that war. But the truth has been transmitted to us transparently in connection with Afghanistan, at least since we decided to leave. And if you describe what happens in a war or in a withdrawal, and that it changes from what you hoped it to be, how exactly would you deal with it differently? Now, as we talk, there are a number of airlines that are now called in to help us move people out of the second locations where we're moving American citizens and those who helped us during the occupation. And the deadline's the end of the month, and the Taliban doesn't really want to change that. So my question is, should Democrats and Republicans be supportive of the commander-in-chief? Well, not blindly if they can make an incremental or an even better difference than that. But I sense that at least the Republicans, the leadership, are looking for a way to attack the president in one of two ways. One is they don't believe we should leave in the first place, so that's one attack. And we can't get around that, and I believe we should leave. And I believe most Americans believe we should leave. So I don't think that's much of an issue. The second issue, which they don't dwell on too much, is that, oh, it's a disaster how we're leaving. But no one says how you should leave instead. Oh, you should have started sooner. And I heard a member of the administration say that when they tried to leave sooner, the fleeing president of Afghanistan, who had not yet left with $169 million, he, or whatever the number was, he insisted that the Americans not leave until maybe not the last moment, but not leave yet. So we were circumscribed by an agreement about departure with the Taliban and limited by an agreement with the government that we'd supported for 20 years. And now people are attacking Biden for these working agreements in order to deal with the tragedy that is Afghanistan. So I think what we have is, looking back on it, not the tragedy they say, but sort of the fog of war. Sort of the old hackneyed expression that the plan for a war or a withdrawal survives until the first moment of the next battle, and then the battle plan gets scrapped. Moving back to the United States, to the Hill, I see some Democrats are trying to lean on the Speaker of the House to pass the $1.5 trillion bipartisan bill for infrastructure and not wait for the $3.5 trillion infrastructure bill that will be passed as a budget resolution. And then I saw an op-ed in the Washington Post in which, I don't know, 5-7 members of Congress have an open letter saying why we shouldn't wait. You know, this is about getting your own. This is all they think they need for their jurisdictions, and they don't care about the rest of the country. This kind of selfishness, when we have a crisis, is unacceptable. We keep saying things about the different emergencies that are coming up. We say things like, we're all in this together, you know, and that was most frequently heard about the virus. Well, no, we're not all in it together. Because when people die, they're not in it together in the sense that we're singing Kumbaya and we're going toward a finish line that's going to be good for everybody. And the same is true about the infrastructure bill. It's about the racial justice bill. It's about the voting bills. We're not all in it together unless we really are all in it together, that we're covered by the bills, we're protected by the bills, we're making a difference for the better. Now, I have one good news story, which I get a big kick out of. I don't know how you feel about Val Kilmer, but I've thought he always produces in these movies. He's a terrific actor, but 5 years ago, he lost his voice, and he had to use one of those talkers which allows you to make out most of what a person's saying, but not very clearly. And he just did a YouTube movie on how this voice was taken away from him. Well, there is a new way to synthesize the voice of a person like him using past recordings, and they have lots for Val Kilmer. And I circulated on Twitter a YouTube of his new voice. It's a technological miracle. Those of us who believe science can make a difference for the better, look at this, look at vaccines, look at ways to redress the environmental disasters around the globe, and say, give science a chance to solve these things. Believe in it. It's not voodoo. It is the gift of the genius of humankind to solve seemingly impossible problems. So, anyhow, that's it for today. Talk to you tomorrow. Bye-bye.